Good afternoon from Yummy B TV. Sending loads of love to you as usual and hoping your Sunday is going the best it possibly can. The subject for today is a bit of a funny one, sad one, and serious one as well, with my experiences over the years with sharing a cell with somebody in prison, as in we call them cellmates. Outside, in layman's term, for some of you who haven't been to prison, and hopefully you never will after this one, is sharing a room with someone. So, those that have been there before to prison will know exactly what it feels like to be banged up in a cell in close quarters with somebody. Sometimes I've even banged up with a best friend and fallen out with them. When you're in that space, it can upset a lot of stuff, trust me, and a lot of things you have to get used to and the things that you have to compromise to get along with someone. But in those places, the majority of the time, there's not really much reasoning. And whether men change cells or not to go with someone else, they encounter another problem along the way. I might have to refer from notes so that I get in as much as I can out of this subject today. But also, they're also coming at the end of this is a very gruesome horror story about some of the things that can happen inside a cell when you're sharing by way of violence with another man. We know the highest degree is that another man loses his life in there, which has happened a few times along the years. I can definitely let you know that. But we'll start from the absolute top, all right? So funny, sad, serious, just bear along with me. We know I'm not the greatest. Sometimes saying stuff, I might blurt some stuff out you might find offensive. But bear with me. Sometimes I think it's better not to butter it up and just let it out so that everybody understands. And ladies also, some of the things that men get up to in there as well with the human anatomy playing parts is also a factor as well. So any offence not meant to be caused, sorry, to you lot as well. But yep, get in a cell, mate. When you go in reception, unless it's medical reasons these days, it's very hard to get a single cell. I was high risk for years, so I was entitled to a single cell. But in the early days, I had loads of experiences, from fights to not getting on with, to not speaking. Can't stand the sight of in different conditions. Remember, in the old days, there weren't no toilets in the cell, just buckets. And then in later life now, most cells have a toilet in there. Some of them are not, some of them are separate, like there'd be an adjoining door where the toilet, so the smell when you go to the toilet is not as prominent. But sometimes as well, there's still prisons where the toilet is actually near the beds or where you eat, where the tables are, and things like that, which can be very, very off-putting. And some men just don't like the smell of their own. I know, but they don't like another man's. But it's like theirs doesn't stink either. But we can get upset over the smallest things. And like I said already, many friends have been lost through, the evasion of privacy to some degrees. So it's not a good place to go. Just to remind you all. So we'll start from the top, and we'll start from the regular ones with breaking wind, as in farting, and snoring, making a mess. And what can we do about that? To compromise. Human nature. Someone breaks wind next to me or the bunk above me, and it's a smelly one. You're gonna have to cover up your nose. Some men don't find it really, really offensive that you could break wind, and maybe the normal courtesy thing is to say sorry. But there's also men that you get great understanding with, who know that you have to go to the toilet, who know you have to break wind, who are not going to hate you for that. But the slightest little thing in there can upset you, depending on how your mindset is and what you're waiting for, especially what you've got outside, inside, the stuff going on with your court case. Is all going to be factors to your mental state whilst you're in that cell. So, the breaking wind, it's part of life. You've got to accept it. The snoring, there's a solution for that as well. You can get earplugs from the doctor these days. You never used to be able to. Or, the snoring gets so loud, it causes fights in the middle of the night as well, because there's nothing worse, I suppose. I'm hearing that I'm a snorer myself. Nothing worse than trying to get to sleep at night and somebody snoring really, really loudly. And I mean, really loudly. I once banged up with a man who was on serious bouts of medication, who just come from a mental institution, and I've never heard. It was like when he snored, it was like thunder, and next door neighbours, 3 doors down, could hear it. So these are the things you're going to encounter. I mean, in later life now, when in the 90s, when the TVs and the phones came, recent times when the phones came in the cell, there's going to be arguments there too, because you know not everybody's going to be wanting to watch what you're watching. But the solution to that, if you get a compromise, is that you take turns with different things on different days. But a lot of reasoning goes out the window in there, like I said to you already. And the phone as well, you know, you might be banged up with someone, you might, you know, have that, that thing where you're talking to your missus or family members, or you have heated arguments, but it's not very, very private, is it? Because you might have to hold back on some of the things you say because you don't want strangers knowing what you're talking about, in things. So it's not really private. In a single room it would be, but it's not really like that no more, due to the overcrowding as well. Very, very hard to get single cells. So, and then we get, the offensive stuff, sorry ladies, but it is a factor in there. Like you're on the bottom bunk and someone's on the top bunk and there's fiddling going on at night from him underneath there, and the bed starts moving, and you're thinking, why couldn't you have just saved it and done it another time? Like, these days a man will say to you, "Oh, wait outside the door while nature takes its course," kind of thing, where you've got to get rid of certain tensions. It's humanly impossible, I think, not to do that as well, inside there. And then boy, there's all kind of things that go on in there. To be honest, we used to have the regular magazine man. For the readers' wives things, where you can purchase magazines at your canteen or at your private cash, to have pornographic things sent in, and many men lend their magazines out and get them back really sticky together. We'll call it, I was going to say masturbate, but that sounds prude. Unless I'm turning into a prude in later life. I think in the old days we called it a Tommy Tank, but for some of us, we know who have been there. It really is part of it, as grisly as it seems, especially around men, that you don't want to be, don't really want to be sharing a room with. You much be sharing a room with a lady, or better off on your own. But either way, the fallout from just having a bad day, a bad letter, somebody saying something to you wrong on a landing and then bringing it back into the room to your cellmate, and from the court cases as well. You've ever been banged up with someone, or have you ever heard a man who's waiting for trial? All he does is constantly talk about his case and about the evidence and stuff, that you're not judge and jury, and you're not the barrister, and you won't be making the final decisions, but you still do your bit, to help out and make him feel better that there is a chance of getting off. But the things that you get asked by another man behind the door in a cell, in a room you share, can be really, really irritating. It's sad that some men won't be able to read and write, won't be able to process things, and you do your best to help them along with these things that they're suffering with, but not day and night. You don't want to listen to other people's stuff all day, every day, because you want your own peaceful time as well, and the stuff that you've got to do, albeit in prison, or some of the stuff, if you've got that outside as well, you would like to have your time where you might want a shoulder to cry on, because it's not all of us that can constantly be helping others in that environment. You're going to need, you're going to blurt out some emotional stuff sometimes, and all you want is a nice free a sentence from somebody to make you feel better. So I've had to do that as well. But in the old days, culture's changed a lot in prison. You had selected few from different countries, but now obviously the language barrier as well is an important factor as well. But there's a solution for that. These days they will put you in a cell with someone that can speak your own language, because it's changed a lot from way back in the day with races and that. But nothing worse, again, when you need a shoulder to cry. And if you've got a man in the cell that doesn't speak English, you'll be like doing single bang up there. If you prefer that, then you wanted a single cell, but it's not every man that wants a single bang up also. There's always men that prefer to have somebody there with them. A lot of the times over the years, I noticed as well that, you could get a cellmate that wants to keep out of trouble, that just wants to do his time and keep his nut down. Now, if you bang him up with a man who's causing problems everywhere and bringing it back to the cell, it could invite him in without wanting him to, and he can get involved in as well. So it upsets so many things. A double cell, I believe, unless you're both on the same page, and it's not very often you're going to get that these days, especially. Um, so we talk about as well when you stop speaking. Sorry, my eyesight's a bit bad as well. So I've had that one where it feels a bit strange when you're not going to talk to your cellmate. You've fallen out over something small and you stop speaking, and you're going to work or you're going for a visit, but then you know you've got to come back and face him. And it's very, very temperamental, and men can explode at any times. And there's something about living uncomfortable with someone as well. It doesn't feel right. The dynamics is added, this like double bubble bird, if you like, where you got to take on somebody else's baggage. Just being behind the door with them ain't enough punishment for you. You know, it comes in all shapes and sizes. We know about the, the the solicitors thing and all that, and share. Yeah, but I've had that one as well. I remember when I was younger, what if a man's rolling a joint or something and you want some of it, but you're not speaking, or you fell out the day before and he doesn't give you none of it? I took offence to that one time because, again, I think sometimes as well that it's not everybody that shares. Just because you bang up with someone and he's got loads of tins of food all over the stuff and he's got loads of tobacco, it doesn't mean that he's entitled to give you it. You know, if you haven't got any, because some men will spy through the spile to say, oh, I wouldn't mind this cell because they can see you with loads of goods in your cell, which means they might be able to ask or get some in that kind of way as well. But I remember I felt so bad when he wouldn't pass me the spliff. This was in the 80s, before I was kind of a bit of a nutter. But again, you know, are we right to feel bad about it when it's his own decision and it's his own stuff? But just because I wouldn't do it, even if I wasn't talking to someone out, you know, there's many times along the years I've done bad things in jail and hide off with drugs and things like that. But if someone's actually in a room with you and needed and wanting, you know, and you're not talking, it's very difficult to leave them out, I think. But not everyone's the same, so it's not everyone. So is it to be expected that just because you do it that way that everybody else will as well? But I felt bad. I felt bad about that, and that. So yeah, that I think we've covered some of those real issues there with the cellmate things, but then we get back to the real nitty gritty of the fights. I remember having my first fight in a cell with a man, and it was in the middle of the night and it was dark, and then you get up and then you get a bang while you're getting up, and then you get the flash of light and you think, oh God, I'm off to a bad one here, and then you're rolling around and that kind of stuff, and where the neighbours can hear and then bells get pressed and then you can get separated into another cell. That seems to be the only extreme way that you can get a move out of a cell these days. I've also had another one where I was in a free up, and they used to call it Beirut in Belmarsh, I think in the 90s. And a man, he would go into the toilet in the middle of the night, because in the Beirut thing, there's one bed, a bunk bed, worstest conditions I ever saw. Even the old Wandsworth days with a 4-up, when, you know, a joint used to get passed round, or a roll up you have to share. Like, you take one lug, he takes one lug, he takes one lug, and everything used to be shared. It was a bit more different, but that Beirut in Belmarsh, terrible place to be in a 3-up. But again, living in, a man was walking around, kept going to the toilet, even though it was dark. I'd already said to him, don't walk to the toilet naked. I know you want to sleep naked, that's up to you. You're not sleeping with me. But I've told him on a few occasions, and all I was met with was aggression back, which caused a fight as well. And that was somebody's brother who was close, who was around us quite a bit, but I couldn't tolerate that. And, you know, forever the day that war's on as well, you know, for things like that. These are the things that come out of that kind of setup there. But then, of course, you get the extreme measures as well, where serious fights happen now. I'll take you back to recent times. A really gruesome horror story. And it's Uncle Yammy days now, later life. And there's two men. One's a dealer, but a very, very cool guy, generous. Very quiet and humble, and another one who probably matches up to kind of man like I was in that life as well, where he's addicted and he'll do anything to get it. And so I'm talking to both parties for a few days, getting the complaints. You walk around the yard. He walks, the humble one walks up to me and says, Yami, is that your mate? He's causing me problems. Things are going missing. I think he's getting to know where my hiding spot is. But he's 10 foot wider than him and 10 stone heavier. So that if they have a row in the cell, then he's not going to be able to really physically, he's not really going to win that. So if it kicks off, but then I've had the other guy coming to me. This is all the build up before it, and he's saying, "Yeah, is that your boy? Like, I don't like the way he goes on with his things and blah 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 blah." I said, "Nah, he's all right. Stay cool. He will look after you if you behave yourself," kind of thing. But I could see all this coming. I was only 3 doors away, and so it did. One night, I heard terrible screams. Apparently, allegedly, they banged up, and I got the noise because it was about 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, where an argument's developed and they're having a little tussle, and the humble smaller guy's got a bang in the mouth, and you know he doesn't really butt the other geezers out of his nut, so he's not in a fit state really to fight, and it's over drugs as well. Again, you know what happens in there with that life. It's just an everyday thing, but he goes to lie down, whether he's gouching or half asleep or whatever, and he's like his eyes are half shut, but the humble, quiet guy's taking it upon himself. I said, well, I ain't having this. I ain't getting bullied. I ain't going to take this. I can't do him physically. So what does he do? He balls up the kettle, puts loads of sugar in it, and makes a jug like that. And while he's lying there couching, poured it all over him. And it was really a horrible look, because I looked through I turned on my light, and then you look through the door, the wheelchair's going past your cell with the nurses and staff that had to be called out. His face absolutely ruined, hands, shoulder, neck, everything wiped out. Horrendous sight. Not the first time I've seen it, but this one in particular was really concerning for me because I like both of them as well. But hearing the scream for some minutes, well, I got on it and then I witnessed it coming out. So they've taken him out the cell, moved the other guy to another cell, and then that cell becomes a crime scene. And then now I'm hearing that, you know, or shortly afterwards, that the guy that got burnt up is making statements and wants to take it to court to get him done, kind of thing. Which in the end, you know, where's the wrongs and rights and all that when you're the one that dished out all the badness? Do you see what I mean? But yeah, gratefully I think, and I'm hearing that, you know, the humble guy beat the case, kind of thing. There was enough evidence in the end, or he didn't go to court and he got off. But again, that could have been an 8, 10, 14, 15 stretch. But can you imagine it? Boiling water, sugar poured all over you while you're half asleep. Because if you can't get done, if you can't do the job one way, a man's he's only human. He can only take so much. But I think that's about it. We've heard there's been a couple back in the day where they've banged people up with each other, and sadly there's been loss of life through sometimes their own fault as well, when they've had warnings about not banging certain people, different cultures together. A man who's got history for harming his cellmates, you're putting him in a cell there. You've also got a couple of men, you don't hear about it a lot, but then you hear in recent times again, while I was in the local, before I got released last time, they put a man in a cell with a known sex offender who likes doing it to geezers, not to butter it up, and then having the crime scene there, and a man getting extra 10, 14 years on top of what he's getting already for his madness. Do you see what I mean? These are the things that happen in there, but I might be up after to do something more, but I hope you're all having a splendid day, and I hope I broke down this the best way I possibly could. Love you loads. See you soon.